So if you're pushing the wrong buttons, it's because you're thinking about yourself and your own needs. I want, I don't want, I don't want, I want now, I want later, I want more, right? If, however, you're capable of understanding the needs of your listener, now whether I teach this to you or you already know it, or you're going to learn or figure it out, doesn't matter. But when you start to think about what are his needs, what are her needs, that's when you're now on the track to figuring out what the right buttons are. And then, of course, it's a separate thing to learn how to push them. But that's what we're going to teach you tonight.
And so let's say, since that this means that you are looking for the win-win because it's the best and the fastest way to motivate, how do you really figure out what someone else really wants?
Well, tonight I'm going to show you two different maps that I use for this. And they have to do with your whole brain function, and they have to do with the way you actually think. So the one that's up right now, which I call the backwards Z, is based on the Herman Brain Dominance Model. And this is for creative people. So if you're creative, this is the one for you. So you're going to start at the yellow, which is creativity and envisioning a possibility and what that might look like. And if you're dealing with someone who's like this, if this is what your partner's like, your children, your boss, your family member, now you really want to understand this, you want to learn this. So is the creativity first? Well, that person then needs to hear about the facts. But first creativity, then facts. Then you think about that person's feelings, because right brain people usually are feeling people. Not always your feelings and my feelings, but their own feelings. So be sure you don't make that mistake. And then finally, you're going to talk about an action plan. Thank you, Fred. So this is really important for you. No matter what it is you want from people, it's going to fall into that backwards Z, creative people, or now Fred's going to put up the model for the backwards C. That's for people who are more rational and more practical. So if you take a look at this, you see that you start with the blue quadrant. You start with logical, analytical, facts, figures, dollars, numbers. Then you move over to ideas and vision and creativity. And then the rest is just as it was with the other version. You're going to feelings, and then you're going to an action plan. But it's really important. You don't have to know everything about the listener from the get-go, but you've got to be able to assess whether someone is more logical or more creative, more rational or more of a visionary. So how do you do that? Well, you look at what they do for a living. You look at how they live. You look at how they dress. You look at the kinds of things they talk about. Is it somebody who watches the news and they're talking about politics? That is the person who's a logical, analytical person. Even if you don't agree with their politics, they still fall into that category. But if this is somebody who's watching art shows and is a painter and is a musician and all of that, and what's really important to them is creativity, nature perhaps, freedom, doing it their own way, live free or die, which is the motto of one of the states on the East Coast, that's a creative person. So those are the most important things to understand. Then as Gigi and I talk about specific motivation, specific buttons, then we'll let you know how to actually communicate. But the first thing you need to understand right now is the concept. Once you get this concept, then you're already a couple of steps into success.
That's really wonderful. I love that chart. It really helps with clarity. Now, could you explain to us the quote from our dear friend, Dr. Marshall Rosenberg? You can't force people to do what they don't want to do, or they will make you wish you hadn't.
Yeah, because what's the difference between pushing the wrong buttons and pushing the right buttons? Well, the results. It's all about results. So if you make demands of people, and that's what this is all about, this quote from Marshall, is that you can't make demands and enjoy what happens next. You just can't. It's the same thing with tough love. If one more person tells me, about how they want to start treating their child with tough love, I'm going to have to tell them all over again about the horrendous, life-threatening things that happen to most children who are the recipients of your tough love. So you can make people do what they don't want to do, but you're going to be suffering. You're going to be paying for it. So please don't do it. It's much faster, much easier, much safer, and much more productive if you learn what we're teaching you tonight, which is how to motivate people.
Oh, I love that. And so much more peaceful, too.
And you'll live longer, as Marshall used to say. You'll live a lot longer.
Well, Susan, please give us an example of pushing the right buttons to get a raise.
Thank you. So if you want to raise, you have to, again, think about the listener. That's your boss or your manager or the HR person at the job, right? So this is somebody who's got some power. This is somebody who's in a position to authorize or actually take the money out of his or her own pocket. So you have to figure out what is the promotion that you've got to be doing. So how do you show yourself to be somebody that should get a raise, deserves a raise? So you would talk about, Bob. Let's say Bob's your boss. And in this company, it's a small company, Bob's the person you go to. So, Bob, just want to let you know I've been here for a year and 1 month. And I know that when we originally met, we talked about getting a review after 6 months, and I got a great review. Really glad that I knew about that. And now I've been here another 7 months, and I'm hopeful that since we had a conversation about a raise when I first joined you, and you said it would be after the 1-year point, and I got a really good references when I joined here, and everybody said very positive things about me at the 6-month point. I'm wondering, would you be willing to give me a raise now? And you should get one. Now, that didn't include how much, because if I was going to ask for a specific raise, I would need a lot more information, and so would you. But that's basically how it works.
Thank you, Susan. That sounds like a sure thing. I like that approach, of course. Now, can you show us how you figured out what would work?
Yeah. So again, you figured this is the boss, or it could be your manager, or it could be the HR person. If it's a boss, this is the upper left money quadrant. This is the person, the boss, controls the money. Thank you, Fred. If it is in fact an HR person or manager, the HR person or the manager, different. They're the lower left brain people. They're the getting things done people. They're the people that the boss looks to and says, Jane or Harry, do this by tomorrow at 5 p.m. So you have to know who you're dealing with. If you're dealing with the boss, you have to speak directly to him about the benefits to him. So then if I were going for the specific raise and I was asking, let's say for, $300 more a week, I'm just picking it out of the air. I would identify for him what's in it. What's the benefit to him? What exactly is it that you've been doing for the last year and 1 month that he can really look at and really appreciate?
Wonderful, Susan. Now, this is a big question that I've heard people over the years ask. Could you explain to us how to push the right buttons to get a marriage proposal?
Yes, now that's really interesting. If you look at either the backward Z or the backward C, it doesn't matter. Now we're talking about men making most of the marriage proposals. There are some women who do, and there are some women in lesbian relationships who do, obviously. But let's talk about men for a minute, because most marriage proposals are created by a man. So the thing that you want to understand is what's in it for him. So some men are very interested in passion or beauty or both. That's the lower right brain. Some men are very interested in money, financial security. That's the blue quadrant, the upper left brain. Some men are really interested in having somebody who stands shoulder to shoulder with them, planning the future, building the future, making decisions for the future. That's the lower left brain. And some people just want peace. They just want to be left in peace when they come home from the office. They want a smile and peace and dinner on the table, and nothing complicated, nothing stressful. That's the upper right brain. So once you decide who it is, then you can make your decision, right? What am I going to go after? And just so you know, Gigi, I'm answering 2 questions at once, so you don't have to ask the next question. So the key here, and this is really important, is are you a very sexy woman who wants to get married? Are you a very affluent, successful woman with a big career who wants to get married? Are you somebody who's just all about getting things done? You're like the greatest person in the world to allocate jobs to, and you make sure they all get done on time, etc. Who are you? Depending on who you are and depending on who he's looking for, that's how you close that deal. And you point out to him how much he enjoys and benefits from whatever it is that's important to him. And listen, he's your boyfriend, so you know him pretty well. You're not going to get a marriage proposal as quickly and effectively from someone you don't know if they're really serious and it's going to be a good match. So pay attention to who he is. It's the secret.
There you go, paying attention. Now, what about someone who really wants to be included in a parent or an elder or an ill person's will in order to inherit?
Well, let me tell you, the key to inheritance is being there close enough to the end and staying there the whole time. So I inherited once and I didn't inherit another time. So I am telling you the secret. I'm telling you. You want to hear more about it, send me a text, an email, or call me. But this is really important. This is really important. Oh, and there was a third will I could have been in if I'd wanted to do what is required again. What is required? You're there near the end, and you stay there until the end. Crucial. Okay, now, there are some people who don't need a lot of prompting. You're their beloved child, they're going to do the right thing, and maybe there's nobody else anyway. Then there are people who are not likely to do the right thing. Or maybe there are a lot of children, and there's a lot of squabbling, and one child is going to do anything he or she can no matter what. So you have to be very clear. So the way to motivate somebody to leave you in the will is, first of all, to become the executor of the will, or the executrix. So you have to convince that person you're trustworthy, that you're skilled with money, that you are really caring about them, you're not going to do anything stupid or illegal, or you're not going to con them in any way. And you just keep making sure that you get that document signed. And I've helped lots and lots of people, lots of clients and friends, make sure that the right document exists, and then that document is signed and witnessed, because these are all crucial things. So you may be the sweetest, warmest, most affectionate, caring person in the world, but if you don't force yourself to become attentive to money and safety and getting things done, there are odds that you're not going to get in the will.
Oh my, and that's even speaking from your own experience. Now, how did you decide how this works?
So again, it depends who's dying, and it depends your relationship with this person who's dying. And it doesn't really matter what you're like, because there are only certain things that you can do in this situation that work. So if you're a peace-loving, nature-loving person, the odds of you getting in this will are slim to none. If you are a difficult, emotional roller coaster kind of person who can't be counted on and can't be trusted, the odds of you getting in this will and getting anything substantial are slim to none. However, if you're all about money all the time and you don't care about the person who's dying and it's all about money, you'll probably get some money, but you won't get all of it, because that person is going to need to include somebody else who's there and visits them in hospice, etc. Makes sense, right? And if you're somebody who gets things done, you also have to either be good with caring and affection and caretaking and visiting wherever the person is going to be, or you have to prove that you're great with money. You have to prove Not just that you get things done, but you're either a great money person or a great love and caretaking person. And of course, if you're all three, that's fantastic. Then you could be in everybody's will.
Oh, I love that. Very nice. Now, what about an example for a career? And could someone get a job by really pushing the right buttons?
That's how everybody gets a job. Every single job that anyone ever gets is because they push the right buttons, because you're no longer living in the Old West when there are only 20 people living in a town. So now there are people from all over the world who want that job. If the job is something you want, there are 20,000 other people who want it. So your job is to figure out what is the button. And you understand that's the point here. You have to figure out what the buttons are. You got to figure out where the buttons are. Then you got to figure out how to push the buttons. So it's a little tricky. And this all depends on what you do for a living. So let's say you just decided you want to be in real estate. You want to be a realtor. And it's very difficult to get a job in real estate when you're starting, because they're looking for somebody who already has houses and clients and all this stuff. And you don't, because you just decided to become a realtor. So you have to show up, and I know a lot of young realtors who've become very successful, and I know a lot of older realtors who have been very successful. Common denominator: well-dressed, well-spoken, new clean car, always clean, because you have to drive people around, great people skills, good network of people, and somehow to survive for what could be 1 year without any income until you get your first commission, sell your first house. So if that's not something that you can show up with on day one, don't go for that job. Go for a job where you're going to start making money right away. Then maybe real estate is not for you today, this year, because real estate is for people who already have some money and they're able to figure this out.
Absolutely. Boy, that's a tricky one. Now, could you walk us through that, please, and how you figured this out?
Mm-hmm. Sure. So you want a job. Let's think of another job, right? Because the whole point is, if you want a job, you have to look at other people who have that job. That's the key. So what's another job that might be interesting? Well, maybe you want to work for a dentist or a doctor and answer their phone. So that's the opposite end. You don't have to have a lot of skills. You don't have to be certified in anything. You could be a nice person, usually a woman, who's maybe divorced and needs some money. But it's a good, steady, solid job, working for somebody who's going to have the money to pay you in most cases. You're not going to have a problem. Now, how do you succeed at that? Well, you have to be, again, very well dressed and well groomed, very presentable, very gracious. Here's a situation where you really do have to have lovely manners. You have to be able to speak to anyone appropriately. You have to also be able to motivate and inspire people to make appointments and keep appointments and pay their bills, in case you're also the person in the office who handles bill paying. You very well might be. If it's a doctor or a dentist, they may not have a big practice. So the more reliable and responsible and dependable and intelligent and showing up on time, looking great, thrilled with your job, happy to stay until the end of the day, not looking at your watch, these are the kinds of things that would make somebody want to hire you. And there are things like this for every single job. And there are things like this for every single area where you want to push the right buttons.
God, you're getting me all excited. It seems so easy now. Now, what about when you really want to make a new friend and you go out to a party, and what would really work to push the right buttons there?
Well, it's not very different from dating. I mean, if you go to a party with the intention of dating somebody that you meet there, then you're going to start working the room. And if, like me, and I'm sure Gigi as well, at a certain point in your life, enough of your friends have already died, so you're saying, okay, I'm ready for a new friend. So it's kind of like dating. You know, you walk in, you case the place, You're looking around, you're looking to see, does anybody look like I might want to be her friend? Is there anybody here who looks like she might be interesting or interested in the same thing? And I say woman because typically, for me, I'm looking for a female friend at this point in my life. And so, you look and there's somebody who's interesting. And just as if you were somebody looking to date, you'd walk over and think of something to say before you get there, the same is true if you want to make a friend. And in this town, gosh, it's small enough, you've probably seen these people before. So you probably even know what you could say. You probably have a pretty good idea of what kind of conversation you could make. Then you do, and boom, you exchange cards and follow up the very next day. Because, in this town, people are so warm and so friendly, and it's nothing for somebody to say, oh, we must get together and have tea, or we must get together and have a drink, or we must get together and have something. So make sure you're the first person who calls.
Oh, that's nice. Now, what is the thinking behind this?
Well, you figure at a certain point they want a new friend if you've got something to offer, and you just have to make sure you present who that is. But you're at a party, so you're already dressed up. You're looking good. If you're a woman, you've got your makeup and hair and your wardrobe are done, and you're putting your best foot forward anyway. Because what's the point of going to a party if you're not? It doesn't make any sense. And so you're just now doing it with focus. The point here, and I think the point throughout this whole show, is: are you sufficiently focused? Is your intention clear? You could just as easily go to that party and look for a new client if you do something as I do, where you have new clients on a regular basis. So it's intention, it's clarity, it's focus. You want to be in that state every minute of every day, don't you? Where you're presenting yourself, basically you're open for business, whether you're looking for a partner, whether you're looking for a friend, looking for a job, looking for a new career, looking for whatever it is. It's important that you present yourself in that way.
And that's a joyful way to live as well, even for yourself.
Yes, exactly.
Now, how do you even know if you've pushed the right buttons?
Well, you know if you've pushed the wrong ones. When you see people who are reactivated. Now, you may be dealing with somebody who's just in terrible shape, and just about anything that anyone says to them makes them furious, angry, heartbroken, scared, you name it, right? So, and I talk to people like that from time to time. And so then your job is to calm them down, get them into a more peaceful place, give them tons of empathy. And if you've been watching the shows that I'm on, you know what that is. So you calm them down with empathy. But basically, if you get those kind of reactions, you didn't push the right buttons, and maybe it isn't even possible to do it. But keep trying, because obviously this is something important to you, and at least you'll get practice.